You ever have those moments where something small happens, and suddenly, it feels like it confirms every doubt you've ever had about yourself? Maybe someone criticizes your work. Maybe someone ignores your effort. Maybe you see someone else succeeding in a way that makes you question your own progress. And before you even realize it, a quiet thought shows up in your mind. Maybe I'm just not good enough. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's just a feeling that sits in the background while you go about your day. But the effect is real. It can make you question your abilities. It can make you second-guess decisions. It can make you hesitate in situations where you would normally move forward with confidence. And the difficult part is that self-doubt often doesn't come from one single event. It builds slowly. Small disappointments, unmet expectations, moments where things didn't go the way you hoped they would. Over time, those experiences begin forming a story in your mind. A story that says maybe you're not as capable as you thought. Maybe you're not as talented as other people. Maybe you're not as strong as you need to be. And when that story repeats often enough, it starts to feel like the truth. But here's something important that many people don't realize about self-doubt. The people who question themselves the most are often the people who care the most about doing things well. People who truly don't care rarely question themselves. They rarely reflect. They rarely examine their actions. But the person who worries about whether they are good enough is usually someone who holds themselves to a high standard. Someone who wants to do things right. Someone who wants to grow. And that desire to improve is not weakness. It's a sign that you are paying attention to your life. But when self-doubt takes hold, it can distort how you see yourself. It makes you focus on mistakes more than progress. It makes you remember failures more than effort. It makes you compare your behind-the-scenes struggles with other people's highlight moments. And that comparison is where self-doubt becomes especially powerful. Because the truth is, most people only show the parts of their lives that look successful. You see someone who seems confident. You see someone who seems accomplished. You see someone who seems like they have everything figured out. But you rarely see the moments where they struggled. You rarely see the times they questioned themselves. You rarely see the doubts that passed through their mind before they reached where they are now. Every person you admire has experienced moments where they felt uncertain about themselves. Every person who has grown in life has faced situations where they wondered if they were capable enough. But those moments rarely define who someone becomes. What defines them is what they do next. Because self-doubt can lead people in two different directions. For some people, it becomes a stopping point. They interpret doubt as a signal to hold back. They assume it means they're not ready. They assume it means they should avoid challenges. But for others, self-doubt becomes something different. It becomes a moment of reflection. A moment to step back and understand what they're experiencing. Instead of letting doubt define their identity, they treat it as information. And that small shift changes everything. Think about someone learning a new skill. At the beginning, they often feel uncertain. They make mistakes. They struggle. They feel frustrated. But those experiences are not signs that they're incapable. They are signs that they're in the process of learning. Growth always includes moments where you feel unsure of yourself. Growth always includes moments where you feel like you're not good enough yet. But not good enough yet is very different from not good enough at all. And this is where many people lose perspective. They interpret temporary difficulty as permanent limitation. They assume that because something feels difficult right now, it will always feel that way. But if you look at your own life, you've already proven that assumption wrong many times. Think about things that once felt difficult for you. Things you struggled with. Things that once made you question yourself. Over time, many of those things probably became easier. Not because you were suddenly different overnight, but because you kept showing up. You kept trying. You kept learning. And that process slowly built competence. This is how most growth actually happens. Not through sudden transformation, but through small moments of persistence. Moments where someone continues forward even when their confidence is uncertain. And that persistence slowly reshapes how they see themselves. Self-doubt often convinces people that their value depends on being perfect. That if they make mistakes, it somehow proves something negative about who they are. But dignity does not come from perfection. Dignity comes from effort. From integrity. From the willingness to keep improving even when progress feels slow. You don't restore confidence by pretending you never struggle. You restore confidence by recognizing that struggle is part of the process of becoming stronger. When you begin to see self-doubt in that way, something important changes. Instead of feeling like it's attacking your worth, you start seeing it as a signal. A signal that you care. A signal that you're pushing into areas that challenge you. And challenges are where real growth happens. Because the person who never questions themselves often stays exactly where they are. But the person who reflects on their actions, who examines their decisions, who tries to improve, that person continues evolving. That person continues developing, and over time, they become stronger in ways that are not immediately obvious. Strength that comes from reflection tends to be quieter, but it is often more stable. So the next time you find yourself thinking, maybe I'm not good enough, pause for a moment and ask yourself something different. Instead of asking whether you're good enough right now, ask whether you're someone who keeps growing. Because the ability to grow is far more important than the need to be perfect. People who continue learning eventually surpass people who believe they already know everything. People who remain curious eventually surpass people who avoid challenges. People who continue showing up eventually surpass people who give up early. And if you are someone who continues showing up, even when you feel uncertain, that already says something powerful about you. It means you haven't allowed doubt to stop you. It means you're still moving forward. And movement is what creates progress, not certainty. Progress comes from effort. Progress comes from patience. Progress comes from continuing to show up even when you're still figuring things out. But there's another part of this experience that many people never talk about. The quiet courage it takes to keep going while you're still figuring things out. Because when someone feels like they're not good enough, they often assume everyone else has already solved life. They imagine that other people are confident all the time, that other people know exactly what they're doing, that other people move through challenges without hesitation. But if you could see inside the lives of most people, you would discover something surprising. Almost everyone is still figuring things out. Almost everyone has moments where they question themselves. Almost everyone has faced situations where they wondered if they were capable enough. The difference is that those moments usually stay hidden. People rarely talk about their uncertainty while they're experiencing it. They talk about it later, after they've already moved through it. So when you're in the middle of your own doubt, it can feel like you're the only one experiencing it. But in reality, self-doubt is one of the most common parts of growth. Every new challenge stretches your confidence. Every new responsibility asks more from you. Every new level of life requires skills you may not have fully developed yet. And during that process, uncertainty naturally appears. But uncertainty does not mean incapability. It simply means you are in the middle of learning something new about yourself. Think about how many things in your life once felt unfamiliar. Moments where you had to step into situations you had never experienced before. Maybe it was your first job. Maybe it was a difficult conversation. Maybe it was a responsibility you didn't feel fully prepared for. In those moments, confidence rarely appears first. Most of the time, what appears first is uncertainty. But something interesting happens when a person continues moving forward despite that uncertainty. They begin discovering strengths they didn't know they had. They begin solving problems they once thought were beyond them. They begin realizing that they are more capable than their doubts suggested. And that discovery changes how they see themselves. Because confidence rarely arrives before action. Confidence usually grows after someone has already taken steps forward. After they've handled situations that once felt intimidating. After they've navigated moments they once thought were too difficult. That's when the quiet realization begins forming. I handled that. I figured that out. I made it through. And those realizations slowly rebuild dignity. Not through perfection, but through experience. Through persistence. Through the simple decision to keep showing up even while doubt is still present. So if you find yourself questioning your worth right now, remember something important. Self-doubt is not proof that you are incapable. More often, it's proof that you are standing at the edge of growth. It means you care enough about your life to question whether you're doing things well. It means you are paying attention to your actions. And that awareness is often the first step toward becoming stronger. Because people who stop questioning themselves often stop growing. But the person who reflects, who adjusts, who learns from experience, that person keeps evolving. And over time, that evolution restores something powerful. Your sense of dignity. The quiet understanding that you are capable of handling more than you once believed. And when that understanding takes hold, something inside you becomes steadier. You no longer need to prove your worth to every passing opinion. You no longer need to measure yourself against every comparison that appears in your mind. Instead, you begin trusting the simple truth that growth takes time, and that the person you are becoming is shaped by the effort you continue making, not by the moments where doubt tries to convince you otherwise. And if this message helped you see yourself differently today, subscribe for more reflections on emotional strength, inner steadiness, and quiet confidence in everyday life.